different than what they're trying to project.
Right.
But for you, self-censoring, because one little complaint, like I was saying, can do this. And that's what's happening at Disney.
Oh, look at that segue. Well, this is not self-censoring. It is like straight up censoring. At Disney, this is more actually at Disney's subsidiary, I suppose, Hulu. Democrats are angry with them for blocking content in some of the ads that they submitted.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty interesting because Disney told some Democrat. Basically, there's a bunch going on between Democrats and Republicans trying to run ads on the streaming services.
So there's a Communication Act of 1934, which is a law that requires broadcast television networks to provide politicians. You fucked me up because you pulled my article away. Provide politicians equal access to the airwaves. So that came out in 1934, obviously before the internet, before the streaming services. So guess what? Those streaming services are not bound by that Commissions Act. So they can kind of play by their own rules when it comes to things like political advertisements, which is not the case for traditional broadcast networks. So that creates this opportunity for censorship, and that's what the Democrats are saying Hulu is doing. So there are 3 Democratic campaign committees that submitted ads. They submitted ads to both Hulu and Disney-affiliated ABC affiliate in Philadelphia and the company's cable sports channel ESPN. So the channels that ran on traditional broadcast actually aired the ads where Hulu did not. So this really pissed them off. Quote, Hulu censorship of the truth is outrageous, offensive, and another step down a dangerous path for our country, said the directors of the 3 committees, Christy Roberts, Tim Perisco, and Noam Lee, to the Washington Post. They, quote, voters have the right to know the facts about MAGA Republicans' agenda on issues like abortion, and Hulu is doing a huge disservice to the American people by blocking voters from learning the truth about the GOP record or denying these issues from even being discussed.
I thought that was an interesting spin. Did you catch that? Voters have the right to know the facts about MAGA Republicans' agenda on issues like a MAGA Republicans' agenda. Their argument is focused on the far extreme of the opposite.
Go ahead and talk, because they're complaining about MAGA Republicans, right? And you know what? I don't know who's doing the right or wrong in this whole. So before we even get there, just kind of give my thoughts on it. Like, maybe the Democrats are right in this scenario and they shouldn't be censoring the content of these ads and just let them run as is, because just in general, I'm kind of not a fan of censorship overall. But go ahead, continue with your thoughts. I just wanted to get that out there, because they talk about trying to take down these MAGA Republicans and how dangerous they are, yet they're doing shit to fund these MAGA Republicans.
The Democrats?
Yes.
How?
Well, go ahead. I'm pulling up some articles.
Okay. I thought it was also interesting that they're worried about, it says, huge disservice to the American people by blocking voters from learning the truth about the GOP record or denying these issues from even being discussed. And I don't want to generalize, but issues being discussed have not been welcome the last couple of years. And all of a sudden they are. You know what I'm saying? Like this thing is one of those paragraphs that's very cleverly worded to make you see something, like focus the issue here on MAGA Republicans, censorship, not discussing important issues, instead of focusing on like why were their ads not run. It's like very cleverly worded so that you'll side with them. That's what I'm saying.
Right. No, I see what you're saying. Yes. Well, they're politicians. They're good at that, dude.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly.
All right.
But so, I was also I felt pretty good knowing that Disney didn't just run with whatever Democrats want, because it does seem all the time the establishment is just running with shit.
You're
but
right.
They eventually did.
It made you feel like maybe there is some type of separation between government and for the private sector.
Yeah, like maybe there is a God.
Maybe so.
Check. So
anyway, I didn't read this, but let me just share this article.
Okay,
go ahead. Take over. So I did not read this at all. Read the headline and just, thought it lined up with this article we're currently reading. Enable screen sharing. This always happens. Yeah. Damn, I need some water. While you enable screen sharing, let me grab some water real quick.
All right. Enabled. It goes on to say Hulu's censorship of the truth. This is a quote from the executive directors of the three committees. So somehow three directors agreed on a quote and they all said it at the same time.
I'm right there.
So J-Dog, I'm just reading this paragraph real quick.
Go ahead.
It says, Hulu's censorship of the truth is outrageous, offensive, and another step down a dangerous path for our country. Funny, like no one was talking about all the censorship for COVID. Actual misinformation.
Hilarious.
You know what I'm saying? So all of a sudden they're
censorship for thee, not for me.
Yeah. And this is coming from the executive
That's the name
directors.
of the episode.
Censorship for the enough. Okay. The executive directors of the three committees, Christy Roberts, Tim Perisco, and Noam Lee, said in a statement. So that's weird. All three of them said this, right? Voters have the right to know the facts about mob. Oh, did we just read that? Yeah, we just fucking read that. And it goes on to say here, to not discuss these topics in my campaign ad is to not address the most important issues facing the United States. Your ban on mobilization messaging has a perverse effect on democracy. This is an interesting turn for the Democratic Party to all of a sudden be saying what MAGA Republicans have been saying the last couple of years. Okay, go on with your article about why the Democrats are funding my far right.
Well, so they're complaining that the whole gripe is that these MAGA Republicans are destroying our country, which is why, it is absolute disservice to the American people for them not to allow us to run these ads to tell the truth about what MAGA Republicans are doing. Yet we have them doing shit like this, like why the Democrats are funding my far right opponent. So this is an article, I believe, about people that are in the Republican primary for Michigan's 3rd congressional district. So there's two Republicans running for office and the race is super close. And basically from the gist of it, from what I've just skimmed through, the Democrats are funding these super far right folks in these primaries because they think they have a better chance of beating them in the general election.
I think that's what Jimmy Dore was talking about.
So you're putting these people that you say are the devil and evil and like the rot of our country and democracy in a position to actually take power if they fucking win, if Trump is able to galvanize his base enough, because you think you lead them in the polls a few points. Like, man, it's a fucked up approach, in my opinion, to trying to do what's right for democracy, right? If you're going to play that card.
Yeah, exactly.
You could be letting these moderate Republicans who actually who aren't fucking crazy conspiracy theorists and shit in these positions where they can actually start to maybe cross party lines on some issues and work with you guys in the Democratic Party to actually pass some laws that actually do some good for the fucking American people. Maybe we can get universal health care done, right? Or something like that, right? But no, we're going to fund these MAGA Republicans because we think, man, just this, it's just a desire for power, man, is overwhelming. That they're willing to like play with fire like that.
And that's apparently what they did when Trump got elected. Hillary Clinton, Jimmy Dore explained it pretty well. So I'm just trying to recapture. Essentially, Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party pushed Trump to be the guy they ran against. That's who they wanted. Like they went after all the other Republicans so that they could have Trump left because they thought I'd beat him. And it turns out Clinton and the Democrats sucked so bad they got exposed. They were just the next wave of Wall Street players.
Yeah, and that's what's going to end up happening, bro. Because they're doing crazy shit like this. I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she, her. I'm wearing a blue suit with, brown vagina hair. Like, what the fuck, dude? Come on,
brown vagina hair.
Like for the public, it thinks that the far left have taken over Democratic power positions. So
that's a fun premise. I'm trying to imagine like Tim Dillon. If Saturday Night Live was still good and they made fun of Democrats, they would totally have a table where they all just gave too much information. Like, that'd be awesome.
That would be great. That would be a fun
awesome
sketch.
Yeah, it just gets awkward and cute, and then it gets the Biden, and it's way too much information.
And he starts talking about
when Biden starts doing that,
kids and shit.
I'm Joe Biden and I'm this and that. Dude, that's so crazy.
Did you see the fucking White House videos of him just with his eyes like super open? You didn't?
No,
like he didn't blink for like 2.5 minutes. It was like the creepiest shit.
I didn't see that. I did see a video. I saw it from Broken Simulations Twitter feed. They shared the clip of he turned his card around and he was clutching it, and you could see what his notes were, and it was like, "You in capital enter the room." 2, you greet so-and-so. 3, you go to your chair and sit. 4, it was the most basic stuff for him to it was wild. Unbelievable. It's not even a good story because it sounds ridiculous. You got to see it.
I've seen that photo. I know which one you're talking about.
Seen that photo?
I've seen it. Yeah.
Bro, I mean, why don't we pull it up right here and share it for the people?
I heard there's always they always obfuscate, right? But so they say that every president gets those types of detailed instructions for these types of press events, but I don't know if it's that detailed. Like maybe they do have like little bullet point cue cards for things, but you take a seat at this like being super specific like that, I don't know if they're ever always that detailed. If they do get those types of instruction cards.
And there's no critique on it. And when Trump was president, everyone was freaking out. Everyone was politically awake and talking about, he can't even read the teleprompter. That's why we don't have, and no one, they're all quiet as fuck right. Now.
You're right.
Whenever he's quiet as fuck now.
Whenever they're actually changing the transcript of what he said when he fucks up on the teleprompter.
Yeah, it's just so I can't find that picture. Nothing's coming up. Interesting. Maybe I'm not searching right. But
using DuckDuckGo or Brave.
Yeah, I forgot what I was saying, but pretty crazy. Oh, like the whole Ukraine thing. All of a sudden, everybody has Ukraine flags, and they're politically and they've said nothing the last 20 years. That's something that really bothers me, is how the left is. Like all today's millennials, just in general, really bother me because their heads are up their own fucking ass and they think they know shit and they don't. Like hippies. Everyone's like, I'm a hippie girl, hippie guy. No, you're not. You don't know jack shit about the fucking hippies who got killed by the National Guard protesting a war in the 70s. What the fuck are you doing? Introducing yourself with pronouns, talking about this and that. Talking about abortion. Not that these things aren't issues, but y'all have been quiet as fuck about 66,000 dead civilians in the Middle East the last 20 years. Yeah. And I'm supposed to believe you all of a sudden when you come out talking about how Trump can't read. He's reading the teleprompter and Ukraine. Shut the fuck up. Honestly. It's so wild to watch it happen. It's almost like a curse being awake. And I'm with Sam Tripoli.
It is. It's like
he says waking up. Or conspiracies is like leads you to spirituality, because in some way, whatever you want to, the synonym for that. Because
he has a spirituality podcast now.
Yeah, you have to like rise above this shit and just accept it. And it's like
we realize it's that's not all. Actually, all of this shit we're talking about isn't what's truly important in your life anyway, right? It's your direct family, your kinship with your friends, like the spiritual shit, right? Those experiences that you have with the people that you love on this planet. That what this is really all about.
Yeah.
Now, all this other shit does get in the way of that, those things, right? So they are important, but anyway.
Here's a weird paragraph. This policy has, and this is coming from Patel, the chief of something. Patel, who the fuck is Patel? One of the leaders of those things earlier. So
the committees.
Yeah, well, I think one of those leaders. Hulu contact. Yeah, Patel's campaign. He was the leader of one of those things. He said this policy has incredible implications for people nationwide, both voters and people running for office. You need to communicate with younger voters on the mediums where they are watching. Cable is not where they are watching. That's such a creepy admission to what they're doing. But I'm trying to watch The Mandalorian. Don't openly talk about how you're trying to get in there and tell me something about what I need to know. You don't need to communicate with me about jack shit on Disney Plus, motherfucker. Let me watch The Mandalorian without.
It's so weird. Disney Plus. They actually took a stance that they will not have political or alcohol ads on their streaming service, which they don't have ads at all right now if you have Disney Plus, but there's an ad supported version coming later this year.
Yeah, which is like, why didn't they do
and
that
then
before?
Netflix is announcing an ad supported version later this year as well, but they don't know what their specific advertising policies will be. But all of these politicians want to get in on the ground floor with these streaming services that do advertisements. Hulu's one of the few right now that does advertisements as a streaming platform, because I mean, that's exactly what they just admitted in that paragraph you just read. That's where all the younger voters their eyeballs are at, right? Like the boomers were watching cable TV. That's why traditionally they would spend millions and millions of political dollars in political ads every year, every election season on cable ads. But now that money is shifting over to these streaming platforms, but it's harder for them. Yeah, $7.8 billion that they're going to spend in the 2022 election season, which is nuts.
Isn't that fucking nuts, dude? So here's, I'm going to read this part. Hulu contacted Patel's campaign Monday afternoon after the initial publication of this story to tell him that his original ad would be accepted, including the images of violence on January 6th. Again, we did an episode on January 6th a while back, and you know what I mean? Enough with all that stuff about the violence and shit. So his original ad would be accepted, including images. So that's why they were not wanting to run it, because they were actually showing disturbing things. And that made sense. Said, I want to thank Hulu for allowing Americans to know about the most pressing issues of our day. Sometimes a simple conversation can make change. What a kind-hearted soul. Like, what a good guy this Patel is. A person familiar with Hulu's policies who spoke on the condition of anonymity to talk about internal matters. So the decision to approve Patel's ad had been made before Monday, though it was not immediately communicated to his campaign. So this is the part where the communications get really weird. And something's happening. This person said that the company does not publicly disclose its advertising guidelines, but that they prohibit advertising that takes a position on a controversial issue, regardless of whether it's a political ad. The ads are reviewed on a case-by-case basis, with edits sometimes recommended to the advertisers. In recent months, the company reevaluated its policy implementation to give candidates greater flexibility to explain their positions, the person said. So they don't have rules. They're making them up as they go. And as they go, they're compromising to the Democratic campaign that's pressuring them. So that's what we're seeing. And I think this is interesting because since this is like a whole new world of internet streaming and how to advertise, they're figuring all this out right now. And this could be the foundation for how the internet will get ran later, because they could, in the next 4 years, you know, the long game that they play, the Democrats stay in power, they could as well start running new ads. The Communications Act of 34, it could be a new amended act of 2025, where what kind of laws would they slide in there, in like the infrastructure bill of 2027, to where the internet is just
regulated.
Totally regulated. And it's all based off of ads again about, hey, you know, we're announcing our pronouns for blind people.
So this is where, like you said, this is where it gets interesting, because Hulu was really back and forth with Patel and that team, that committee, because they originally, let's see, let me find the part of the article and I'll read it. I'll just read it.
Read it.
So 3 days after placing the ad buy, the three Democratic committees were told by Hulu through a vendor that the delay was content related, according to a person familiar with the events, who also spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss the internal process. The next day, Democrats scheduled a call with Hulu to discuss the matter, but the Hulu officials canceled the call just as it was about to begin, suggesting by email that they reschedule later in the day, the person said. Hulu officials did not communicate further that day. An attorney for the Democratic committee emailed twice and called twice the following day in an effort to restart discussions, receiving no response. The following day, on Thursday, Lance Delaney, an account executive in Disney advertising sales, emailed to say, "We have received creative approval," only to follow up hours later with a message that said, "The message was sent in error."
Yeah,
that's a mixed communication, right? Patel's campaign received a similar message from a Hulu representative on Thursday asking him to resubmit the original ad. He said the Hulu official suggested that they had some kind of meeting and standards were changing. The following day, Patel said the campaign was told the original ad would still not run. On Monday, he found out that it would run. So there's this whole back and forth and everything. This is not the first time Democrats have been blah, 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 blah. But this happened after this story ran. So this story came out and then they ran the ads. There's a part of this article that it says that. I'm trying to find where it's at. I remember reading that earlier today.
The streaming spending, which is that 7.8 billion, tracking firm Kantar Media projects 7.8 billion will be spent on political advertising for the 22 election season, with about 1.2 billion going to over-the-top and connected TV spending, a category that includes ads delivered through streaming services and set-top boxes like Roku. The streaming spending, according to Kantar, is the, quote, new darling of the political set. How creepy. Creepy. And do you remember whenever Ron DeSantis was talking about the taxes of Orlando and all that shit? That ties in here too. Did you find your spot? Because we can tag back to this.
Yeah, so Hulu contacted Patel's campaign Monday afternoon after the initial publication of this story that morning to tell him that his original ad would be accepted, including the images of violence on January 6th. So this was after the back and forth, right? So they basically emailed him on, that before the weekend saying, nope, your ad's not going to run. And by Monday morning, after the story airs, actually Monday afternoon. So this story came out Monday morning. Then Hulu contacts Patel's campaign Monday afternoon saying, cool, we'll run your ad. We'll keep the original images and everything in the ad. So them making up these rules on the go, it was obvious what happened, that they were now you have pressure from the press that's going to make your company look bad and biased potentially. So they're like, fuck it, just run the ads, leave the content they wanted in it. We're going to let it go. So that's kind of the kind of the Wild West that you create when you don't have, a Communications Act like they had for the 1934. So it's interesting.